Who are you? Who are you? Gemini, who are you?
Hey, what up? It's Tommy Riot. I'm here in the studio. We're working on the Sisterblaze music album, and I've just been mixing some vocals that I recorded myself, as well as with some other singers, some session players, all that my friend Mike, he wrote all these songs, played the drums, the guitars, the bass, wrote the lyrics, and then been sending it back and forth this year, working on it. We're just coming to the finishing stages, and what I've been tasked to do is kind of take his mix that's 90% there and do a little bit of a touch-up on the mixing before it goes to mastering, as well as process all the vocals. And for that, I rented some special toys. What we got here is the 1176 and Warm Audio Pultec. And these two things right here are my personal favorites for my voice. This unit turned out particularly good because it has a very natural amount of compression, and you can really slam it. The analog version, compared to the digital version, I always almost use that digital version of this when I'm mixing, but the real version, I find you can push it a little harder and you don't hear as many artifacts. And that's the nature of analog, is that those things that are boosted up a lot louder don't lose any fidelity, where in the digital world that might happen because you have a low level signal and then you're increasing it. It's the same as blowing up a picture on a camera, and you know, when you make it and resize it bigger, it's often going to lose resolution. So same thing with audio, and the analog really allows you to keep a good resolution without having to dial back. Like maybe in digital world I'll use 3 compressors stacked, whereas this I'm getting away with 1 and then just a touch of another compressor on top. But the EQ, I actually put the EQ in first, and that brightens up the signal first before hitting the 1176. And the reason why it goes first is because we want to have that top end, all those high frequencies actually going in hotter and distorting more and triggering it to compress those high frequencies more. Because if we were to put it in at the end, it might bring out more brightness actually then, but we're kind of using it as more of a tone shaping option. So we want to get the brighter side of the distortion out of this, and I'll show you how that process works. So for this, some of the tracks here, as you can see, there's a lot of tracks. Right here from this black, these are the screams. These are some red gang vocals. The yellows are Mike's vocals there. We've got these blue ones here, which are the finished, processed ones. And then right now I'm going to show you a quick mock of how the processing goes. So we have these blue ones here, and we're going to actually solo them. I'm going to show you a little bit from the track Gemini.
And now you can hear me.
How can this happen?
And know who you are.
Weight like a stone. So here we got the vocals from Jessie Jean. She recorded these back in the summer, and they're sounding just amazing.
Come now and find me out in the stars.
Alright, so I'm going to show you right now how I got the vocal tone, and one of the big things that I did was create this reverb through my Kemper profiler down here. So first I'll show you how that kind of sounds. At first, the dry vocal.
Oh, who are you?
And then
Who are you?
after the dry vocal, I added this delay.
Where are you? Where are you? Gemini, where are you?
Simple lo-fi tape delay.
There's still a space between two hearts in love. From the oceans to the stars above. Have to find her. Have to bring her home. Have to find her. Have to bring
Right here is a polyoctave delay. It's really interesting.
Have to bring her home.
But I only blend that in 13%.
Have to bring her home. Have to find
Then
her.
lastly, the reverb.
Have to.
So for the whole album, I actually, with my hand, dialed in the reverb by listening when I wanted to bring out certain vocal notes. Now we set this down about -15, and we're going to turn on these here. Now we'll hear the main vocal join in. This compressor here is taking it down from anywhere from 3 to -10 dB, and I'm finding that I'm really able to smash it, and that when it's set to 20 ratio, I'm really loving the responsiveness of the compressor. I find that in the analog world that 20 ratio doesn't feel the same as digital. With the digital 20 ratio, I might find it get too compressed, where this feels still pretty natural. And for a lengthy album like this, it was really nice to be able to know that this would be able to take a lot of different dynamic range and not distort. So really happy with that. After that, on the EQ here, if you want to take a closer look, what I've got going on is the mids down at 400, which is where the clarity of the vocal is being boosted 2 dB and then cut 1 1/4 dB. And what that does is actually add a little bit of saturation to the vocals in the low end. And the same concept is being applied up here at the 8 kilohertz with a broad EQ filter, meaning that the sweep isn't too intense. It's very casual and cuts across a lot of the range of the frequencies. So I'm boosting 3.5 and taking away 1.8, and that really gets me that scooped kind of loud sound that I'm looking for out of a rock vocal. And this thing is super transparent and really just adds a nice color and focus, I'd say, to the voice. So we also have these two different compressors for the left and right main backup vocals, which I organized across the whole album, and I'm sending it through these so that I can really smash those two main lead backups and let them sit even throughout the whole album. So this one here, the optical circuit actually uses a light emitting diode, and as the energy of the vocal goes through the light emitting diode, it ends up actually lighting up brighter, and the brighter it lights up, the more it compresses. So because of that old style circuit design, it's actually one of the slowest, and so I find it's really nice for making things feel nice and smooth and round. This Eureka I also dialed into a similar kind of speed, attack and release wise, fairly fast on the attack, but both leaving just a little bit of the transient in. So now that we've printed all the vocals through the compressors, we're going to add a little bit of finishing up EQ as well as subtle bus compression. We're going to add a little bit of bus distortion through the ozone exciter and a little bit of delay. So here I have the vocals. You can see now that the stems here are a lot thicker and juicier. They came in looking great.
You're back home, but with one lonely tear in her comet blue eyes, hair like the sun bursting in the sky. I know she is out there, I know she is real. I just wanna find her, I just wanna feel.
Here's my vocal bus. We got Ozone Dynamics here helping us out with the multi-band compression, bringing in a little bit of the lows and the highs, as well as Kramer Pi, which is a replication of a SSL G-Bus compressor, and the Maserati group, which I have set on mastering, which has a bit of a compressor, a limiter, this EQ, and a bit of tonal grit. So that bus there is really just helping us with the tone shaping, whereas on these individual tracks, you'll see I have the actual plug-in version going of this equalizer right here, And on this one, I'm just boosting a little bit. I wanted a little more of the hardware sound, so I added it with the digital version. This is the exciter that I was telling you about, and I run it on the tape setting at only 1% on the mids and the highs. Then I have a de-esser going. I had one previous to the compressor as well, before I outputted it, but this second de-esser is actually taking care of the 10K area, which is the air of the voice, and that area just needed a little bit of taming. Sometimes it's really nice to actually boost the 10K into a de-esser that's taking away, and it will make that whole frequency range a lot fatter and thicker. Then I have the H delay here. That's got the high pass and low pass, really making all the repeats kind of put into this smaller telephone filtery box, which is nice. And I automated the delay times throughout the whole album to be on tempo with all the beats. Sometimes half time, sometimes double time, sometimes back and forth. And now all the vocals together sound something like this.
We'll count the days till we can drink again. Drink again. Drink again.
So for the mixing, I wanted the transitions that hit really hard to hit even harder. What I decided to do was take an immature plugin, which spreads out the stereo field, and automate it so that it would actually turn on and off and spread things out wide and bring it back. I did that for the guitar bus as well as the drum bus. As you can see right here, this purple line here, those are all the points where the guitars have the imager spreading them out wide. And then also here up with the drums, here are all the transitions there. So take a listen to this and how it sounds with that. For the guitar bus, we wanted the guitars to feel even louder. So because of the Munson curve of your ears, the louder you make something, the more that your ears actually hear bass and treble. So as you're turning it up, you can also hear the treble and bass lift. To make it appear like something is louder without changing the volume of it, you want to actually scoop it with the EQ, because that's what our ear relates to something being loud. So to start off with the guitars, we boosted a little bit of the 100, as well as boost and attenuated a little bit of the 3K to get a little bit more grit up high. Then on the API EQ, we're taking out a little bit of 800. I automated that throughout the album. Sometimes 800 can be a little bit of a lo-fi kind of sound, a little bit of a boxy sound. So there were some songs where the guitar bus needed that kind of taken out. Boosting a little bit of 300 for the warmth. Then I'm going into this Maserati group here, which with its distortion characteristic on the guitar setting, it really kind of sounds like a Fatso by Empirical Labs with a little bit of hair. So it added just that touch of fuzziness overall to the guitars that made them cut just a little bit more, and also really pushed the mids a bit with that. Then next I went into a transient designer, and I made that as fast as it could possibly be and boosted it up quite high. I found that that really helped get back a lot of the pick attack and a lot of the, intensity, aggression that the guitars needed when the compressors were really working hard on them. It was kind of taking a little bit of that away. It's good because they needed to be compressed to all be relative to each other, but we got it back, that aggressiveness, that pick attack, through this transient designer bittersweet flux. Then I'm going into this multi-band dynamics here. Really subtle ratio, 1.2 on the mid-range and 1.1 on the lows. That's like such a subtle touch. It's really only taking 1 or 2 dB at most. Then I'm going into this exciter here, where I'm actually giving a little bit of grit to the mid-range from 700 to 2K. I found that sounded really nice and tied together the mids. I actually distorted them and then brought them down a little bit, and that allowed the highs to feel still clean relative to them. Which is nice, because sometimes when the highs are a little bit more distorted, it makes the sound feel overly aggressive sometimes. Next, in this equalizer, I reduced the mids around 1K, and then here's the imager that we automated and I showed you just before that. So the guitars on their own sounded like...
As the light fades from your eyes, remember.
Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure getting deep and showing you the nitty-gritty behind this mixing process. I can't wait for the Sisterblaze album to come out. It's going to be amazing when it does. Check it out, and if not, check me out, Tommy Riot, on all social media platforms. You can like, comment, subscribe, send me a message. I'll try and get back to you. Any questions you have, really. And I'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
Who are you?
See you later.
Who are you? Gemini.